Welcome everybody to our latest episode of Scream Creeps, where this week actually we're going to deviate slightly from what we talked about in the last podcast, and we're actually going to discuss the movie that came out on September 8th, the sequel to The Nun 2. First, we're going to actually show you the trailer of the movie, and then we're going to go ahead and start talking about what we thought about it. So with that, let me share the trailer. The film was directed by Michael Chaves, and the screenplay was written by Ian Goldberg, Richard Nang, and Akila Cooper, from a story developed by Cooper. Obviously, it serves as a sequel to The Nun that was made in 2018, and it's the 8th installment in the Conjuring Universe franchise. The film stars, I'm going to shred this, by Thaisa Farmiga, Jonas Bloquet, and Bonnie Aarons, who all returned from the first film, and Storm Reed and Anna Popplewell joined the cast. Peter Safran and James Wan returned as producers. A few things I wanted to talk about. In 2017, Wan discussed the possibility of a Nun sequel, and by 2019, Safran revealed that the film was in early development. Cooper was hired initially as the sole writer before Goldberg and Nang contributed as screenwriters for the final script. Chaves, who had previously helmed The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which we reviewed on this podcast back in, I believe, 2021 after the movie came out, was announced as the director. And then principal photography began in October 2022 in France. And like I said before,
he also did Curse of La Llorona too.
Yeah, the film was released on September 8th. So far, it's grossed 162 million worldwide, and it's received mixed reviews from critics, but generally has been deemed an improvement over its predecessor. So we'll go ahead and get started on our discussion of the film, what we actually thought, and then go from there. And then show you when we complete that, we'll show you what we're going to be talking about next time. Who wants to go ahead and start off the discussion?
Well, once ago, to me, I definitely, for some reason, I don't know why, when I watched the trailer, I didn't think that it was going to be the actual same people for some reason, because I only watched bits and pieces of the trailer. So, because the way that how most of the Conjuring movies are, I didn't know if they were going to do a direct sequel from the last one or if they were going to do all different people. So I don't know why I wasn't figuring that both the main character, or I guess main characters from the first film, were in it. But other than that, yeah.
Well, the funny thing is at first when I was watching it, I didn't think it was the same people. For some reason, I must have drew a blank on the first one when we first started watching it. Yeah, at first I was like, is that the same? I'm talking about the Nun.
Yeah, Sister Irene.
And even the
Frenchie.
Yeah. For some reason, when we first started watching it, I drew a blank, and I was like, "Oh wait!"
Well, you did watch the first one. What was it?
Well, I think
we watched that pretty recently.
The Nun was the first episode.
It was one of the it was the first episode of the podcast, actually.
Yeah.
So first episode of the podcast, but I mean that was still what, a year ago?
3 years ago, dude. Almost.
It was that long ago. Holy crap!
Yeah, I think our first.
Wow.
It might have been 2 years ago, but it was a while ago.
2 years ago.
Regardless, I knew it was the same person because it's what was it? Teresa Farmiga. I guess I don't know if it's Latin or what.
Well, yeah, she's the she's the sister of the one that plays Lorraine.
Yeah, Lorraine Warren. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know she was in American Horror Story. I think it was the first American Horror Story. She was the daughter in that. So I knew that it was right away the same person.
Okay,
so,
yeah. Again,
probably because I've watched any American Horror Story though.
It's
But I
probably because
mean,
I've watched so many movies that they blend together sometimes. I mean,
yeah.
especially
Well,
so it's
like
like
that's the main thing from when I was watching it was because I was just like, is that the same person that was in the first movie? Because the way that they were explaining it, like the nun could have been like was around for a while, so that's why I was for some reason I was thinking that it was gonna be like
So
I
that
don't
was
know
only. I
later
mean, you
on
guys
in
must have
time.
been confused for the first 10 minutes
Not
because I
really.
mean, once you
well,
Once I saw Frenchie
well,
and stuff, I thought that the beginning was cool, like how they were doing with the kid with the kicking of the ball, and then he brought that giant glass of wine, and they did all this stuff, like even the jump scare where the like at least I thought that it was gonna be happening where the ball was gonna get kicked far or something, and then it was gonna break the glass of wine, and then turns out that it just cracked the glass of wine, and then it just exploded. I thought that
well,
was
the
kind of cool.
ball didn't.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. I was figuring that that was how the jump scare was going to happen. Was that because they kept focusing on that. So, like when it just cracked and it exploded, I was like, "Oh, that's different
I
than
don't
in
know how
some
different.
movies." But I mean, not so much different. But like
Well, they were
so
they in
anything
the
where it subverts my expectations, where I'm thinking that it's going to go this way and that it does, like even if it's a bit of a left turn kind of thing.
well, I
It's a
guess
little bit different, but
what the issue for me was is I wasn't the first 10 minutes. Remember, it was all younger kids. So at
yeah,
first,
oh
I
yeah,
thought they were going down the path of showing her
as a
as a
child.
young, like
Oh,
she
you
would
thought
be the
this was going
young
to be
girl.
an origin
Yeah,
story
yeah,
yeah.
of
At
yeah,
the.
first,
Yeah,
and
no,
then
I knew it
then
wasn't
she
going
showed up. What 20 minutes in when she's at a whole
yeah,
different
Yeah, but
place.
yeah.
you knew what was happening in the first 5 minutes.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
Well,
first five
once
yeah.
I
ten
saw
minutes.
her, yeah, that's when I figured what it was. But it was a cool like little thing where like at one point they show like him getting raised and shit, where you saw like the nun. And one of the main things that I like about the nun as like a horror thing is I like how it's like in the background, like they don't really focus on the face all that much. I mean, they somewhat do, but like they kind of like I don't know. It kind of reminds me of like when you were a kid, where you're like looking at something off in the dark and you think you see something there, and then it turns out to be nothing. Like
You
you'll
mean
turn
like
on the
Bloody
light and
Mary
then
when you
there's nothing.
went into the
Like
dark
Kind
a,
of
a
like that, yeah,
bathroom
yeah.
and
And
yeah,
that's one
do
reason
you
why I
know?
kind of
Have you
like what
ever?
they do with the nun. Huh?
It's like the paralysis monster. You know what that is? When you have sleep paralysis and you see something off in the distance, that's supposed to be the paralysis monster. Or like, it's just a weird
well,
thing.
Elaine always
Anyway,
has
the
weird shit, but
the beginning of the entire movie, I thought it was cool in a way and a bit extreme. I mean, it just goes to show you. I knew as soon as that the priest started lifting off the ground, I was like, oh, she's pissed. Like
yeah,
she's pissed about
Yeah,
something. I don't know what
yeah,
she's pissed about, but she
yeah,
is pissed. And then he bursts into flames. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
whoa, that's
yeah,
happening.
yeah,
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
well,
yeah.
So I'm like, okay,
all right. And I was like, well, apparently they're going to make her extremely powerful in this movie because if
Well,
she can lift a priest off the ground on sanctified ground
yeah.
and then
Well,
burn him to death,
well, the
like,
first thing they did, if you notice, was she melted the holy water in the.
yeah,
oh
oh
yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
so it like heated up and steamed off. So you knew right then. It's like, oh shit. It's like,
But
cause,
also
yeah,
the cool thing was,
yeah. That's
I
mostly
see
what
it
I
as
liked about certain parts out of the opening was that it was different type of stuff, like especially the holy water and stuff like that. How it was like burning or steaming off, whatever.
yeah, and it's funny how they gave you a faint a foreshadowing moment when you see the dark figure walking out of
Oh
the
yeah,
oh
sanctuary and
yeah,
you see
but
the
yeah.
shadow
And yeah,
shrunk
of the
down
and then
nun
I
and it
yeah.
said,
shrunk down
yeah,
inside of him and then that was like, oh, okay, this is who's carrying the I knew
yeah, and I
instantly.
thought
I
that
didn't
was
know it
cool.
was
Yeah,
was Frenchie, but then once I saw Frenchie I was like, oh, it's him.
Well,
because
yeah,
it's
and that was
And
the
I
other
so
totally
stuff
easy to
that,
forgot
tell.
about the ending from the first Nun
well,
movie too.
and
Like until like when they started
well,
showing
well, they
bits and
recapped it.
pieces.
That helped
Yeah,
because,
yeah,
like, they recapped when he saved her,
He got, yeah.
and that all that stuff happened during that point. So it did really a really good job, I felt, of, especially for people that may not have remembered the first one,
oh
kind of
yeah. It did
tying
a
it
good
into the
job
first one.
of
Yeah,
No,
recapping
oh
I'm
yeah.
it where you knew
what I'm
where they
saying,
were at.
yeah, I mean, because you knew where it had been, because they talked about pretty much everything that happened in the first one. Because when they did the meeting with the librarian priest that
Hmm.
had all the
Yeah.
historical information, he went over what happened before basically, and then they tied it into what they had to do
Yeah,
later. Which,
the main problem that I thought was out of this movie, they did a lot of foreshadowing, like a lot. Like the girl that was at the convent with her, where she was like, "Oh yeah, I've never seen a miracle before," like tied into like near the end of the film, but like it was like that. Then the priest, how like, oh yeah, it turned out that it was the building, all this stuff, like where it was like certain things you and like it's funny that they did a lot of foreshadowing throughout the whole thing.
Turned out it
Even
was the
Frenchie
building.
having, yeah, like it was like, oh, it was right on the nose, like it happened to be the same building where the eyes were, and all that stuff. So even the when he
Well,
was
I mean, I
at
guess
well, they,
the
that one was
priest's
pretty
place when
obvious
he
yeah, they knew
well,
that
that's what
was
I'm
the
saying.
because I
building.
mean,
Even
that's where she
the
was when
painting,
she was looking for something.
yeah, even the painting where they were like showing the rosaries, how they had the symbols on it, and then they even had the painting where it was like the eyes sitting on the plate and
Yeah, but
stuff
did
like
I
you
that. There
wouldn't
figure
was a
out?
I
lot of
wouldn't
Did
stuff
really
on it.
call that foreshadowing. I would say they were having clues in order to find what she was looking for.
Well,
Foreshadowing would be like, for instance, when they talked about the saint that lost her eyes.
yeah,
They
that's what I was talking about.
foreshadowed that that was what they were looking for, but at the time you had no idea when they
Well,
talked
I
about it
mean,
that she was what
like
that's
I figured
foreshadowing.
that, yeah, like I kind of figured that they were going to talk about that later on in the movie, but like I was just
Yeah.
leaving. Like, but that's what I was saying is like they were talking about a lot of stuff that eventually happened like later on in the
But
movie.
just so you
But,
guys know, that
but I
is
mean, there was
historic.
a lot of cool. Oh, sorry.
No, I just wanted to say, just so you guys know, that is historically accurate what they portrayed in the film, though.
And that was one thing I actually really liked because I went with a friend of mine that is also Catholic, and she's devout, and she was worried that during this movie that it would be bashing religion or anything like that, and it was actually very it. I thought it was great. Like it sure it had demonic things in it, and she was saying, "Oh, looking at demons," and I was like, "No, it's a movie. Like if I'm sure if they were trying to the Hollywood was trying to spread demons around, they would have done it in the first iteration, not in the second one.
Yeah,
I mean, come
yeah,
on." But either way, it's a funny thing that she said that. But regardless, it had a lot of historical accuracy, and it actually like, well, I won't get into the ending. I'll talk about that later. But it was like the nunneries and how the schools. Well, that one was an orphanage in particular, but it was great. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, I
That's all
was
I'm gonna say.
actually surprised because when we were watching it, I do recall all of that stuff. So, like, um,
All of what stuff? What do you mean?
about Saint Lucy or Saint Lucia and
Yeah,
stuff
I mean,
like that,
actually,
because
you know what?
she's part
Let me
of.
look it
I
up
mean,
and
it's a big thing
well, it
in
says it
Catholic
on the
mass.
Wikipedia page,
So
essentially,
she's one of
where
8 women that
she,
are explicitly commemorated during the canon of the mass.
yeah, and
So I
but
mean,
like yeah, it says that she was martyred as a pagan. Though she was set on fire, she miraculously did not burn. Her eyes were gouged out, but her family recovered them.
that's why I said
And
it's
then
almost
it's
exactly
essentially
what they
that's
did in
yeah,
the
and
movie.
then
yeah, that's
essentially it
awesome.
was like yeah. So like it's kind of cool. That's one thing that I like about finding
Well, I
out
mean, the
about this
rest of
stuff
it was
anyway.
even the stuff about what was it, Lorraine Warren and what's the her husband's name?
Oh, I can't remember. Something. I
Something
I
can't
always want
Warren.
remember
to.
I
his
The
forget.
funny
actual
thing
name.
is, I always want to say Patrick Wilson, but that's who plays him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I want to do that all
I
the
know it's
time.
Lorraine, but I can't remember the husband's name. Yeah, Ed. That's what it
Ed
Ed,
was. Yeah,
Warren,
Ed
yeah.
Ed
Warren. Okay,
Warren.
all right.
Yeah,
It's because they were based on real people as well. So it's like
Yeah.
all
yeah.
these things
Well,
that are
most of
happening are all
I
stories that they
think
told, but
actually I
it's
don't know
like
if the nun was part of like one of them, but I know that
Well,
Annabelle was and stuff like that, and they have like a bunch of like
you
stuff
guys,
in their
did you
house,
guys
but
stay for the credits?
I didn't
I
watch the
I
whole
did.
credit scene or
So
whatever. I
did
Now,
you
oh,
figured
see
you
it.
mean
the
to the end of the credits or to the secondary credits?
to the no,
There's
just
the
through the
first,
post credit scene. So did you see the
yeah,
scene?
yeah, yeah.
So it's
Oh,
gonna
I didn't watch it, no,
yeah.
because I
So
didn't think that there was one.
spoilers that will tie into the next
Next
Conjuring
Conjuring,
movie.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it ties into number 9. There's a new Conjuring movie being made, and
Good lord, they're just gonna milk the shit out of
why
this damn
wouldn't
Well,
you?
I mean,
series.
hey,
You
they
make
with
150. You
Yeah,
honestly,
if
they've
they're
been
making
good.
money on it, yeah, like if they're making money on it, they're just gonna keep making it. But I mean, that's the main thing about these ones. I was talking to somebody about these movies, and they were like, "Are they good horror films?" And I'm like, to me, that they're good like popcorn horror films because they're like easily accessible to like anyone. They have
Yeah,
some
but what
like
these
these
days
ones don't
wouldn't be
have a whole
considered
lot
that.
of jump scares on it. I mean, there is a few scenes that I really liked. I mean, I liked how they raised him up and then lit him on fire, but there was also the scene where the chick was there was a kid, or like, I don't know how old the kid was, but like they were dropping off or delivering stuff, and then they went in there, and I'm assuming that it was for the school. So they were dropping stuff off, and then they see Frenchie kind of like, twitching and like he wasn't all there and shit. And then she's like, oh, and she kind of freaks out and then she starts leaving. And then eventually the nun shows up, and that whole scene where like it shows the nun and the whole thing's emblazoned in dark red. I thought it was cool. Like it just looked cool. And then she decided to kill the chick, like at one point, probably to make sure that she didn't get found out or whatever. But
Very,
there
very
was,
good.
yeah, there was. Well, that's what I'm saying is like that scene and just how it looked was cool. Like, and even how she like just snapped the chick's neck was kind of cool. And then also at the same time
How
later
many? How
on,
many? Come on, bro.
huh?
Leave us something to talk about. Damn.
Oh,
Like
sorry.
what the? How many are you gonna do? It's 3 in a row. What?
Yeah.
Give me something,
I
man.
can't. I was
And
just
by the
talking about
way,
parts
the
that I
delivery
liked.
kid was a little girl. Okay,
Yeah.
she was.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't
Frenchie
know
was
how old
gurgling
she
in the
was.
corner like a friggin' creeper. And then, yeah, that one
I'm
actually, I was
I'm
surprised that they killed that little girl, or the nun killed that
Yeah,
little girl. Like,
yeah.
what the, what?
I'm
Like,
glad the little bitch got what handed to her though. The one that was
what?
yeah.
Oh,
Which
oh,
one?
No, the one
oh,
that was
yeah,
messing with
yeah. The
the
one that
daughter
was,
of the teacher
yeah,
that
yeah,
threw her in that room. And I'm not going to give too much away, but basically threw her all alone in a room to be terrorized for
Yeah.
well, yeah. So
and
Well, I
like,
mean, see, the thing is
yeah,
even with
there was a
that,
few things. Yeah,
the great thing with that scene, like that is actually what led them to the eyes. So it's
yeah.
like if that little
yeah.
girl didn't
And she
terrorize
didn't
her,
see that.
she
Yeah,
wouldn't know. So she
True.
wouldn't be able to describe to them like, oh, well, the eye beads red whenever it's in a certain light. Like
yeah, and
there
they
would
wouldn't have
never have
found
that
it. Yeah,
information.
yeah.
So
I
it was
get
like
that. She just
even
got
the
her
bad
comeuppance,
things
though,
that
is what I
happened.
was.
Oh,
Yeah.
she definitely
Which I
did.
mean, she didn't
But it was
die,
like,
but she got stabbed by horns.
Well, Elaine
Really,
was
but
wondering about that though. She's like, that's one thing they didn't like explain. Like, she thought the way she got stabbed, she died because she was like
oh
stabbed right
no,
in the
no,
middle of
no,
her
she
well,
wasn't
chest.
she
dead.
got him
It
through
wasn't in the
her
And I
nose. It
that
was through
shoulder.
her
So
shoulder.
like,
She wasn't dead.
yeah,
that's yeah, but
yeah.
the,
But it was
anyways,
funny.
that's
That it was
yeah.
poetic because she got the horns when she was the one that was talking. It was the goat in the mirror or in
Yeah,
the
Yeah,
stained glass. So it
yeah,
was like, yeah, you
yeah.
got
yeah,
that's what you
and that
get. You
was the
get the
interesting
beast.
part. That was the interesting part I found about this one was I don't remember the nun morphing in the first one.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was in the first one that he morphed,
He
or
morphed all
well,
the
the
time in this
demon
one, but I
morphed
mean,
into the goat. But like I
Well, it
remember,
was
at
whatever your
least
fear
in one of the
was. I thought.
Conjure, well, I thought that was his true image of the character.
well, they
I thought
explained
that
it,
was how the demon looked like, and I thought in
but I
like
think
the
it.
one that they introduced him in, which was either the Conjuring or Conjuring Two. I thought
Yeah,
that
Oh
but
they
he
yeah, I
had
remember
yeah
what
had
you're
the
saying.
true face of who he was.
of Valak.
But that's
Yeah,
yeah,
but I mean,
and then
I don't. In the first one, though, what I was saying, I think he was, or the demon was just the nun. I don't think it morphed into
yeah,
anything
yeah,
in that
that's
one.
what I'm saying. I
In this
think it
one, it
was
took
in one
on
of the
forms
other
of
ones.
like
Yeah.
when the, and I don't want to give too much away because people should go watch the movie, especially at this time of the year.
Oh shit!
But
Kick the.
the time with the headmaster and the issue she had where her son had died, who was an
Mhm.
altar boy,
Oh,
and he
that
shows
was a
up,
cool scene. I
and
think
it's
that's
like,
probably I think that was
I mean,
probably my favorite scene out of the whole movie.
but every time the nun would show up, like in the hallways and shit, and there was callbacks to the original Conjuring, like when they looked down the hallway, that was the house from like Annabelle comes home. I think the same hallway that, if you remember, that
Oh,
Lorraine's
see, I
daughter
was trying
saw.
to figure out
When,
which part that was for.
yeah, when
Okay,
Lorraine's
that makes
daughter
sense then.
saw, remember Lorraine's daughter was younger, and she had seen the nun down the hallway.
Yeah.
Um, it's a callback to that scene. Again, I'm giving
See,
away a
I
lot,
couldn't
but
figure out if that's the what
I
it
mean,
was because I
I think with
remembered the
these
scene
new,
looked similar, but I couldn't place it where it was from.
I think with these giving away information, we should say, spoiler
Spoilers.
alert, if you don't want to hear about the movie, don't watch this podcast.
yeah,
Like, look, we'll put shorts and stuff on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and stuff, just without any spoilers to tell you whether or not it's good to watch and what we actually thought of the movie as a whole. Here, if you want to actually see this and hear us talk about it and not
Yeah,
really
just
have to
watch
see the
it for
movie,
yeah, and then watch it
then
and then come back to it, or just like yeah, if you just like to
mm,
hear about it, then yeah.
this we're going to talk about the movie because we went and we discussed
what?
this stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, most of the time, whenever we end up having the podcast
I
anyway, I think
digress. I just
everybody
try
kind
not
of
to like,
knows to,
Give
you know,
away
yeah,
too much, but I mean,
yeah,
we got to give away information when it comes to this. We can't really talk about the movie without, and it's
but
just like Josh was saying earlier. It's like he was calling it a popcorn flick. It's like the thing I like about all of these Conjuring movies. One, it's its own universe, just like let's say like Marvel and DC have been doing a lot. They've been making their own everything that just ties into each other, and the storylines, the actual story within this, all of these movies have been good. So it's not just that it's a horror movie or that it's like jump makes you jump or anything like that. They use opportunities, but the story as a whole is good. It's well written. Like I don't see any of the dialogue being bad. Like it hell, can you give me an instance in this movie, just like we did last week, where we were like, oh, that's kind of tropey, like when they went back to the house from the what was it, the poltergeist that we just reviewed, when they went back to the house, and we were like, that was the only thing that I was kind of weirded out about. In this
yeah, this
film,
one,
was there
yeah, this,
anything written that you were like, uh, uh, meh, well, why did they do
uh,
that, or what was this? It
the
was like
yeah,
the only thing I
like
can think
plot
of,
holes or something.
yeah, the only thing I can think of was that when they went to the library and spoke
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
guy, he had every bit of information that they
yeah,
needed
yeah.
in order
yeah,
to get it.
That's the main
Instead of
thing that I
them
was
going to
thinking of
him
too.
and then going
yeah,
somewhere else and then finding something like he was a set of clues because it seemed like they were trying to keep the time down to a certain amount. when
Yeah, I
it could
kind of
have been
alluded to
written
that
into,
earlier.
you know.
Yeah, I alluded to the same thing kind of earlier when I was
Do
talking
y'all
about
have
when they
any
went
other
to.
instances in the actual writing that
Hmm.
you can really think of like that?
No,
Not really. I mean, like I
and
liked how she even still had the visions like she had from the first one, and they even tied in with, like at first, like let's say like part of like near the end of the movie, kind of like
Hmm.
I liked it. At first, I thought that it was blood that they were sitting in, and I was like, "How did they get blood over here?" And then I noticed that it was I forgot where they were at, that they were in like the
The wine
wine
cellar.
basement or whatever. Yeah. So then I was like, oh, it's wine. Okay, then that makes sense. But really, the only thing that I could think of out of the movie is probably the library scene, just because, like, it seemed like they did a lot of stuff to rush you into, like, them getting to the boarding school and trying to, like, protect the girl and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they even also at the same time, they did a lot of stuff where even when Maurice found the what's her name? I can't remember the girl's name, the daughter. Like when he found her earlier in the like the day after they made fun of her or whatever, and then they even went back to that like at the end where she's like running away
Oh,
from
you're
him.
talking about the school teacher's daughter.
Yeah, yeah. I can't remember who what they named her,
oh, you
like
talking
what
about
her
the?
name was.
I thought her name was like Sherry or hold
Sophie.
on, Sophie.
Sophie,
Sophie.
that's what it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm thinking about like because they were doing stuff where it was like every scene was kind of like flipped at the same time. Like because they did a lot where it was in the chapel where they like had the thing where they were looking at the goat's eyes, and then at one point it seemed like Sophie's favorite place was in the clock tower part or whatever. And then it was kind of cool how she was running away from him. So then she, like when she was running away from him, she was still in the same place. But probably the only wonky bit to me was kind of funny was the part when the clock tower fell or the clock fell, and then she was like hanging on this one part
Of the stairwell
of the
or
stairwell,
the
yeah,
like
and trying to make
door.
sure she didn't fall down, and you could tell that it was like uh, a set, or at least it looked like a set to me, like
Yeah, but
that they did for that part.
what
But that
about
was just like
what
that was
about
pretty much the main other thing.
what about you, Jeremy?
I didn't think there was
Uh,
any tropey stuff in it. One thing, and I'll talk about something else that I liked, and Elaine actually liked it too. My wife, she liked how how typically in horror movies it's all like they jump up behind you and shit.
hmm.
And in this one, it was all over the place. Like there were times the demon would pop up in front of you and come to the side, and then you'd open a door, and there was different areas instead of it just being from
Yeah.
behind.
And
And
instead of it being
Yeah,
pan right and then they pan
yeah,
back left to see the other side and then it's right there. It's like
yeah,
that was
yeah,
actually the only jump scare that I got hit by was the magazine scene. And it
yeah.
was like
When that,
you knew it was going to happen. You knew it was going to happen the entire time.
yeah,
You're
yeah. I
like,
think
oh,
that was
she's
the,
going to be in that pages. She's going to
yeah.
be in the pages. And
Yep,
then what? But you didn't. I didn't expect her to go right for the jugular. So
yeah,
when that happened,
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
oh shit! All right, well that's how it is.
yeah,
So it was just a little thing, and I was like, well, they got me there. Damn you! Like
yeah. That was the only
but
time I
it
think
was
I jumped.
all of the jump
See,
scares
I jumped a
were.
couple of
Hold
times,
on,
but it
Josh.
was
Hold
like
on. I
very
was in the
small.
middle of talking.
Sorry,
I was in the middle of
sorry.
talking. Out of all the jump scares were literally like right in front of your face. You knew they were going to happen, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like they still got you. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like they were kind of predictable, but in a good way.
Yeah.
So it was just uh, they used the tricks that they would normally use against you with timing
Mm-hmm. Yep.
because they wouldn't time it exactly when that camera got panned. They would
Yeah.
use it at like
A
two
good.
seconds later, and then
Yeah. A
boom, you're
good.
like, ah, shit.
Yep. A
So
good example was like with the kid, the altar boy. They did that with because they were one way, he was coming from that direction. She
Mm-hmm.
turned around and then wasn't there, turned around again, wasn't there, and then turned around again, and all of a sudden he's like 5 feet from her,
Yeah.
swinging
Dude,
the
oh
um
man, I swear,
the
like,
smoke. I don't know what that's called. You know, where they
oh, it's like
swing the
incense
smoke
or
thing,
something
the
like that.
incense. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I don't know what it's called. Unfortunately I don't remember what the actual mechanism's called. But basically, he used that against his mama.
yeah.
Well, the
Like
demon did against.
my favorite part of that scene was just how she lit up the whole thing and then went back. So it went to it several times, like a couple of times, and then all of a sudden, then as soon as it was dark, then he started walking towards her. I was like, "Oh, that was really good," and then he vanished.
That's what I'm saying. They
It's
did a
that
lot
called.
part
of.
was just
I
so
wanted to
good.
know this too. It's actually called a thurible.
Okay.
So it's a metal sensor in which it increases the burning religious service. Yeah. Thurible is suspended from the chains, is gently swung by priest or thurifer in order to spread the fragrant smoke of incense. The thurifer is an acolyte that carries the thurible. Fun fact.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, they use them
um.
a lot. Well, when I went to Rome, they use them a lot there. But I mean, in church here, I haven't been to a. Well, I mean, I go to St. Mary's, but we don't have one there.
Well, I remember
So
St. Mary's in California. They used it
yeah, they
because they'd
might have
swing
it
it
Yeah.
in
forward
most
and then
Catholic
they'd swing
churches,
it.
but I haven't seen one. Oh no, yes, I have for special services, but on
Mhm.
Sunday Mass, I regularly don't see them.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, the funny thing is you how the eyes worked, and then you come to find out that she's a descendant of Saint Lucy, and that's they kind of got to that, and I didn't know if I went to that too quick. I know you were talking about the end of the
No,
movie,
no, no. I think we.
Aaron, but
I
Oh, I
think
but
kind of
Josh
mentioned
covered
a
the
little bit
entire
just
movie,
because the
really.
one.
yeah,
I mean,
So, uh, you're welcome
yeah,
from Josh, from me to Josh. You know how it goes.
yeah.
well, I mean, most of the time, like that's why I don't know. I just talked about favorite scenes and shit like that. So I
But I
don't.
mean,
I'm
she
Next
basically
next
got.
time, I'm gonna
yeah.
have Jeremy press the mute button whenever you feel it. When
Oh, shut up.
you've got a limit of your
Golly.
to
Yeah.
one scene, and then I'm just fucking.
The funny thing
Mess
is,
with
I can actually do that, but
you.
I mean,
I have control over your.
Fucking ass.
yeah.
We
Let's
probably
see.
should.
No, no,
You say
but
that shit now, fucking ass.
that would be funny on the videos. You're sitting there talking and nothing's coming out.
Yeah,
What?
just rude.
But
Golly.
We're
I
talking the whole
swear.
time, just laughing.
yep, yep,
Anyway, getting to the end of the movie, it's actually that was one of my favorite parts was when the two sisters were in the wine and they actually used prayer to make the water into the blood of Christ. That was
yep.
I thought that
Hmm.
was an interesting way that they would be able to fight because once she got the eyes, spoiler alert,
Yeah,
the nun gets what she was looking for.
yeah,
But in order to fight that, what it was the only power greater than it? Well, not the only power, but what is a power that's greater than that? And that would be the blood of Christ. And they used it to their advantage. So it was a really cool way that they actually defeated the nun in this one. Did,
yep. Now, it'll
Yeah.
be interesting if that actually fully defeated the
Well, I
nun,
mean,
though. Like,
obviously
yeah,
didn't fully defeat her because they had her in Conjuring 1 or
well,
2 or whichever one, which is
you
way
would
later.
think
So obviously,
you would think with a demon, right? They're only defeated in the physical realm that they're
yeah.
keeping. So
If
it's like
yeah,
it
anything,
went
with the
back to hell,
demon, yeah,
but who's to
yeah,
say that demon wouldn't come back? So I
yeah.
mean, there are endless possibilities with that, but it's like it's a fictional. It's
Well,
a
yeah, it's like what
fictional
we talk
demon.
about. I
So
think Dad had a conversation years ago, and this was way before Marvel Universe even was a thing. Remember, we had talked about it, and he's like, I don't know why they don't make a lot of movies about comic books, because like literally you can
Mm-hmm.
keep making them and making them and making them and making them and just change the universe. And they've actually gone to that when they did Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and
Yep.
they can
Yep.
basically
And now
even
they're doing like
restart
cosmic
X-Men
shit and
and
everything.
on
Yeah.
all these because it's the different universe of Fantastic Four or whatever. So it's like that's exactly what they could do with all
There are
these. It's not
endless
like they can't.
possibilities. Yeah.
Yeah, and they
But I
can do
mean,
12
but
different Supermans.
we know the reason why they didn't back then was
Hmm.
because the technology
Well,
really
that the
didn't
CGI and
support
stuff.
what was happening, but it is now. So of
Hmm.
course that's why everything's turned into Hollywood is
Well,
turned into comic
unfortunately,
book central.
I think that's part of why you're seeing all these stupid remakes too, though,
Yeah.
because now
Like
it's
what's
like
it called? Yeah.
they're
There's
trying to
several
make these
different
better. I
ones.
mean, did you guys see that they're making, I mean, and I'm digressing because it's not horror, but they're remaking Color Purple?
Yes. I
Yeah.
even said something
Yeah.
when
I
when
was
the
like,
trailer was
what?
happening. I saw the first
Yeah.
10
Yeah,
seconds
Because I
of it and I
think
was like,
that's
yeah,
yeah.
I literally said first 10 seconds of it. I was like, are they remaking the Color Purple? I'm like, all
yeah,
right, I
Yeah.
understand
Because that
remakes.
was one of the
I
yeah,
trailers that we
I
saw too.
I
Yeah.
truly understand remakes when there are movies that had the potential of being amazing, but they weren't as good as what technology now can make it.
yeah, yeah, and that's
That
where I was saying,
movie was amazing. The
yeah,
original Color Purple, superb acting. It was an amazing story. So it's like for
yeah,
them to remake it into a musical slash, but then you see that Oprah is producing it,
yeah.
and
I was just gonna say, yeah,
well,
that,
fuck, shoot myself in the foot.
yeah,
Like, well, I
Yeah.
mean, how am
Yeah.
I going to deny that Oprah's doing? All right, well,
Yeah.
let's go see
since
it.
she
Especially
It
was in
just
the
Whoopi's
made me
gonna
original,
want to
be
see
in
the
it too.
original.
Yeah.
It
well,
just made me
Oprah
want
was
to
in the,
watch the original.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, but I think it's more based on the musical, anyways.
Yeah,
That's what I
exactly. And
got the
that's why I
gist
was
of
like,
it. Is
oh, okay.
it's a reimagining, but it's really the musical. It seemed
Mm-hmm.
like to me because I think Fantasia's the main person in it. You know, Fantasia Barrino
Oh,
or whatever her
Oh,
name
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
from
yeah.
American Idol.
Yeah.
Anyways, I didn't mean to digress slightly, but I'm just pointing to the remakes
Well, I
because it's
mean, we
like,
were also talking about because how when we were watching this movie, that was one of the trailers,
well, yeah,
or
but I
at
mean,
least the
it
one
may
It,
that
not
it's
I
have.
a
saw. It's like,
it's
what?
still a horror podcast, and it's like, but it's
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
It's something that not bashing the Color Purple or the new one to come
No,
out. It's
no,
probably going to be really good, but I mean, come on, man! Like that movie was amazing.
yeah,
I didn't get
Yeah.
it.
So,
I first saw it. I was
like,
like, what?
that's the one thing. It's like I've seen remakes. Like, I've talked about a couple of times. Like, if we're talking about horror remakes, it's like the Thing with the remake of the Thing, but it's not technically a remake. It's more a prequel before the
you know what?
original.
Yeah,
And I know we're
So
talking
I
about.
mean, yeah,
I know we're talking about the Nun too, but in the future, what we should do. With that being said, is we had talked about this a while back, doing head to heads. Like we watch Evil Dead from 19, what is it,
and then watch
78,
the new one.
and then watch the new one and
See
compare them
if it
head to head.
yeah.
It kind of goes to what you were saying, Josh, with the Thing, because we're going to be watching that as part of the top 35 scariest movies. I think it's 25th. It's
yeah,
after Alien, but it's like we could do it with that one, like watch the Thing and then the newer one and go,
Well, I mean,
yeah.
anybody that's
Well, we
watching,
could
like,
also talk about that when we're watching it. Like
yeah,
when
yeah.
we comment on it too.
But
Oh,
anyone that ends up watching this podcast, whatever you think about that idea, tell us what you think in the comments below, uh, and see what you might want to see as far as head to head goes, seeing the remake and the original. I mean, personally, I think we would all be pretty biased in most accounts to the originals,
yeah,
just
yep.
because we're a little bit older, and it really would just depend. I think the only instance that it wouldn't be biased is if we saw the remake first and then saw the original. So,
Yeah,
but I don't
I
know.
agree with
It
that.
could
Yeah.
be. It really just depends because
Well, I
nostalgia
mean,
is everything, right?
if that's the case, I think we would be talking about Dawn of the Dead at one point. We would talk about Dawn of the Dead and then the Zack Snyder remake So like
Well,
it's
there's all
like
types,
certain
dude.
things.
I
Yeah,
mean,
there's
not
all
Friday
sorts of
the
stuff.
13th.
But
I
what
think they
if
redid.
they're
They
both
did.
bad?
Well, yeah. Well,
I'm
you
Well,
could
just,
say
like
I'm
that.
just
yeah,
I mean,
kidding.
the funny thing is, we've done like 30 podcasts now, and I think, out of that top 35, I think all of them we shit on. I mean,
yeah,
so it's
like
like,
at least the first five,
I mean,
or the
yeah.
No wonder there's an
technically 35 to
audience.
30. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the problem was they weren't good movies. It's like, they were
I mean, what
they
are you
were
gonna do?
deemed as these freaking
Yeah, like
scary, nasty
let's,
movies,
I could be
and
talking
they
about
really
like
weren't.
way worse movies.
I mean,
Like I'm surprised that Saw wasn't on one of them. That is such like
well,
I'm
the
just
list, I think,
surprised with
well,
some of
that's the
those
thing. I'd
picks that
like
they
to know the
picked.
criteria that they came up with most of them. I can see the top ones, why they were there, though,
Well,
because
I mean, see that we're basing this all on what was it, the heart rate thing, right?
yeah,
So it's
uh-huh.
like when these movies came out, you're talking the Poltergeist. They had heart rate monitors rigged to these people to where it's like, oh, we saw their
Mm-mm.
heart rate was around this much.
Oh,
It's
Well, I
yeah,
like,
mean,
how
probably.
much is
also the
this
same.
based on
Yeah,
truth? Like,
yeah.
it sounds like a
Well,
load of shit to me.
well, not only that, but again, remember we were talking before about desensitizing? Like,
Yeah.
that's where I was saying, like, I've seen Poltergeist when I was a kid. If you took my heart rate then,
It would
it
be,
was
Yeah,
probably
it'd be through the
150.
roof or something like
yeah,
that. Yeah,
But
but it
watching
was
be
it,
like
probably
but
high. Yeah,
150 just sitting there. You were so
but
damn young.
but that's what I mean.
yeah,
But watching it now, it was probably 50 or 60.
I almost fell
yeah,
asleep during that movie.
I mean, yes,
I'm just kidding.
yeah.
My resting heart rate was low.
yes.
Well, I
No,
mean,
I'm
that's
just
how
kidding.
it was with me in audition. Like we've talked about that on the podcast too.
But
Like
yeah, I
I
mean,
felt like I could have fallen asleep to that movie and not missed a damn thing.
but I mean, from that standpoint, we kind of talked about the end of the movie where she basically it comes to pass that she's a descendant of Saint Lucy, and Valak basically lifts her up off the ground and lights her on fire, but she does not burn. So
Yeah, she starts to. It's like they portray like she's starting to burn, and then
yeah,
it
but you knew
just
she wasn't
stops.
because it only went
Yeah,
up to like her knees.
yeah. And
It was like,
then right then, that's when like talking about the foreshadowing. Then like the girl that joined her was like, "That's a miracle," and this and that. So like it reaffirmed her faith
well, yeah, you knew
in
that
what
was
she
gonna.
did, what
That
she was
I
doing.
get
That's why I
that,
say certain things, but but that's what I'm saying. Like a certain parts of foreshadowing. Not saying that it's a bad thing though. That like I just you kind of just figured that that was going to happen
but
was something she was going to see
what they
being
let
like,
open was that Maurice wasn't fully
oh yeah, like he
himself still
wasn't
at the end.
fully over it. Yeah, yeah.
That's
Which
what they kind of alluded to.
they could probably do like where there's another nun movie at one point.
Well, like I said, I think Valak might be involved in the next Conjuring movie because the post-credit scene ties in Ed and Lorraine Warren. Again, spoilers. Watch the credit scene. I'm not gonna. It's not very long, but it basically ties it into the next one. And I don't think they would do that unless the nun was involved somehow.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I think, I'm not sure, I mean, The Conjuring, the devil made me do it was, it was cut from that movie. That scene was actually cut from it. So,
Oh, the one that they put in this one
yeah,
was cut from
it
it.
was cut from The Devil Made Me Do It. So,
Probably because they were like, "Oh well, we're not going to do another Conjuring movie for a while, so might as well not put it in that one."
oh,
Yet.
I doubt that. They've probably already had one in the pipeline because it's
Yeah,
like when
yeah,
they
they
start
probably-
doing one, they're filming another
Yeah.
one. Now,
Because I wouldn't
when
be surprised if they do another. I'm like, I would not be surprised if they do another Annabelle movie.
But because
Like,
of these
yeah.
strikes, the writers' strikes and the SAG strike, you don't know when these are going to get released that are currently being filmed. It's like when
they were
COVID came
talking
out.
about like with Stranger Things that it might not come out until like 2025 or 2026, and that they were going to show de-aging stuff on the people. That way they looked about the same age.
But one thing I
And so,
wanted to point
yeah.
out before we got to the total end of the podcast was one thing I noticed was Rotten Tomatoes. The critics rated this 50%.
I mean, when did the critics ever rate anything
I
good?
know.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
that's why I don't typically go off of the critic score. I go off the audience one.
Audience, yeah.
yeah,
And the
What
audience
was the
is
audience score? 74?
74%.
Yeah, I would say that's
So,
pretty good.
yeah.
That's
Pretty
pretty
good.
yeah.
Yeah.
accurate. I mean,
I tend to notice the ones that are higher critic scores suck. I don't mean to say that, but it's like
Well,
it's just like
yeah.
when you watch the Oscars, most of the time Best Picture, when you actually watch that damn movie, it's like I remember years ago, and again I'm digressing again, but the during the Oscars, English Patient won, and that was one of the worst movies I ever seen.
Well,
And
I
that's my
mean,
opinion. It's
yeah.
not. It's probably I'm probably in the
I mean,
minority
so
of that,
yeah,
but
like it's like certain movies you don't think that they're like, but I mean,
but
there's a lot of other movies that I don't. I think that they give a lot of flack to, like that they don't like horror movies are never like involved. I mean, granted, like a lot of horror movies stick to their own certain things, but most of the stuff that wins for Oscars and stuff like that is like mostly period dramas or like dramas, period, and then some musicals or whatever. Like it's like it's surprising when like an action movie or like actually I don't even think that really action movies win. Most
well,
of the
no,
time, it's
that's not
usually
true.
always dramas.
That's not true. Everything, well, everything,
everything
everywhere,
else,
all at
or
once.
yeah,
That won an
one.
Oscar.
Oh, that was up there. I didn't
Yeah,
It
it
realize that
won.
won.
they
It
picked that.
won Best Picture, Best Supporting
Oh, that was like
Actor, Best
what? That's
Actress. It won.
surprising.
It won the show. But I mean,
Yeah, it did.
if you
I
watched
still
What
that,
the
it was a
hell?
great
That's
movie.
crazy, man.
I still haven't
That's
seen that
crazy.
one.
I still
It
haven't
is
seen it
definitely
either.
worth a watch. It
Well, I mean,
was.
that's like something that we should probably do on Sci-Fi Graveyard.
No,
Like,
it is
obviously,
for sure.
because I mean, it's like from what I've heard is that it's a sci-fi-ish film. At
Yeah,
least
well, I
it's
mean,
like goes the.
it's a multi-dimensional film. So it's like, yeah, I would say so. It's a woman's inner battle to fix her trauma, and it's multi-dimensional. So it's like a daughter,
See,
a
I thought it was just like
mother-daughter
a.
relationship that is all trauma-based. It was, I mean, it was good.
Okay, so with
See,
that,
like I thought it was like a kung fu movie, but anyway, sorry.
It is.
no,
It's an
that's all
action
right.
movie. Like
That's all right.
there's action in it. So
So with that, do we have anything else that we wanted to talk about in regards to the Nun 2?
No,
well,
Okay, so
that was quick. I would
yeah,
say it was definitely would I say it was theater worthy? No, but it was a good, entertaining movie that I wouldn't pay again to see it twice.
oh yeah, I wouldn't pay to see it a second time, but would I watch it again? Like with
Oh, for sure.
my, yeah,
Oh, would you?
with somebody that,
like if it
yeah.
was on cable or something. Yeah.
So with that, I think we're done talking about the Nun 2. The next one that we're probably going to talk about, I believe we've talked about, would be It Lives Inside, that releases on the 22nd of September. And we're going to actually show a trailer of that, if I can get it to work right this time, on here.
It premieres on Hulu on the September 22nd. So we're going to watch that, and then that will be uploaded on the 23rd for
Yeah.
the podcast itself. But from here on out, we're actually going to be doing the I don't want to say the main Screen Creeps podcast will be broadcast every Wednesday, and then we'll have special episodes for new premiere movies, and those will be aired on Saturday. If there's
Tamir and I were kids, my mom used to tell us stories. The ayah said never to sleep with a bad feeling in our hearts, because there's a dark thing that feeds on those feelings.
What is the deal with Tamira? Is she doing all right?
My stomach drops every time she appears out of thin air like that. There's something in here. You can't see it. But it lives inside. Don't you hear it? You let it out. It needs to tenderize the soul by attacking your sanity, isolating you from those who love you. And if anyone tries to help you, it will hurt them.
Why are you whispering?
It's listening. It's called the Pishash. It doesn't kill you right away. It eats you slowly. When it's ready, it eats your soul.
And that's the trailer for It Lives Inside. It's another demonic one, so we get that. We get to do another demonic movie. Right after we did this one. Yeah.
All these demons.
Yeah. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Scream Creeps. I enjoyed talking about it. I'm glad Aaron's back to join us. It's been what has it been, a year, I think? Well, you were on Poltergeist, but I think before that it was a while.
Yeah.
But it's enjoyable getting everybody back involved again. So for all of us here at Scream Creeps, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.